A wooden floor creaks as a young woman removes a tight skirt, quietly agreeing to change into something easier on someone's suggestion. A nervous pink-haired girl clutches a pair of black stockings and asks a dark-haired man if she really has to wear them, and he insists she must. The pink-haired woman hesitantly adjusted her revealing outfit, thinking that while it was better for movement, wearing it always made her feel ashamed. The dark-haired man explained that her previous clothes weren't practical for running, and reminded his companion to pack everything since they would leave tonight. The pink-haired woman cheerfully listed all the snacks she'd packed, but the dark-haired man reminded her they were fleeing, not going on a picnic. Then, the pink-haired woman gleefully presented 2 marriage dolls, announcing they were the most important treasure given to her by Brother Yizheng. The dark-haired man, looking weary, told his companion they had wasted enough time and urged them to hurry since everything was already packed. A red-haired woman called out playfully from the balcony, waving and urging the long-haired man to look her way. The red-haired woman called out with a playful tone, inviting someone off-panel to join the Heartless sect for dual cultivation. A dark-haired man with a hair accessory announced eagerly that he would join the sect since they accepted people regardless of aptitude. He reflected on joining the Heartless sect, realizing the true meaning of dual cultivation, but the world soon plunged into chaos and war. A powerful and menacing demon conjured a fiery dragon as a composed and powerful blonde man stood calmly, with glowing swords in the swirling flames. A wounded, bloodied man with long hair gripped his sword and explained that disciples without background like him were always sent to die on the front lines. He recalled being injured on a mission months ago, falling into a coma, and then being saved by a peasant girl named Xiaodao. A cautious woman with a basket and knife slowly approached the lifeless, stabbed figure lying beneath a sprawling tree. He said he stayed at Xiaodao's house to recover, and during that time, not once did he consider returning to the sect. A pink-haired woman called out to Yi Zheng from the doorway, telling him it was time to eat, and he set his axe aside to reply. A dark-haired man in elaborate robes was hurled backward by an overwhelming force, shouting in disbelief about the sudden surge of spiritual pressure. A dark-haired man watched in awe as he recognized the golden Arhut avatar and the black feathered snake locked in a fierce confrontation. A serious-looking man with long black hair told Xiaodao that in times of war, nobody could truly stay uninvolved, and ordered her to pack and leave tonight. The dark-haired man told the pink-haired woman that he wanted to leave immortality behind and just run away with her, urging her to hold on tight. A playful voice teased Yi Zheng for blushing, and he quickly insisted he wasn't before urging them both to hurry out of the room. Yi Zheng carried the child along the stone path, reassuring Xiaodao that anywhere could be home as long as they stayed together. Gray smoke curled and twisted through the darkness, filling the space with a heavy sense of foreboding. Yi Zheng introduced himself and explained that despite being a transmigrator with a system, he couldn't activate it and felt completely confused. A confident woman with a sword stood before the glowing gateway, telling someone their aptitude was lacking and ordering them to leave. A muscular man with glowing eyes crossed his arms and shouted that the applicant's root bone was too poor, firmly rejecting them. Still, the dark-haired man wondered aloud what purpose transmigrating served if he couldn't cultivate in this world. An unseen voice shouted for the dark-haired man and pink-haired woman to stop, making them both turn back in shock. A powerful white-haired woman rose into the night sky, calmly levitating a sword and a glowing orb as green energy pulsed around her. A blonde woman demanded permission to kill a thief from the Heartless sect, but a white-haired woman immediately ordered everyone to hold on. A dark-haired man with a hairpin froze in shock as a white blur surged straight toward his face. A dark-haired man with a hairpin cried out in pain as a white-legged woman kicked him hard in the face. A white-haired woman hovered over the dark-haired man and warned that if he revealed the Heartless sect's plan, she might let him live. Still, a dark-haired man with a top knot sneered and claimed he couldn't possibly know the sect's plan, mocking his unseen accusers. A stern silver-haired woman glared with fierce determination, letting out a sharp, dismissive sound. A serious white-haired woman calmly told the blonde woman to deal with the pink-haired girl, who cowered in a defensive stance. A pink-haired woman pleaded desperately for mercy, insisting that Brother Yizheng was good, while a blonde man mocked her for caring so much. A fierce blonde woman shoved the pink-haired woman, grunting in contempt as her victim stood wounded with a sword through her abdomen. A young man with dark hair lay face down on the ground, his body shaking with pain as silent tears streamed down his cheeks. A black-haired man shouted the pink-haired woman's name as a blonde woman rushed toward her bleeding body. A furious long-haired man on the ground shouted that none of this involved her and demanded to know why she was being dragged into it. A young man with dark hair demanded to know why the pink-haired woman had been killed, his voice raw with fury. A confident blonde woman loomed over the tearful man on the ground, warning that this was his last chance to talk or face the consequences. A disdainful dark-haired man spat at the blonde woman, making it clear he wanted nothing to do with her threats. The dark-haired man erupted, shouting that he would never reveal anything, even if he knew, to someone like her. Without warning, the dark-haired man took a brutal punch to the face, blood spraying as he reeled from the unseen attacker's blow. The blonde woman ripped the eyes from the dark-haired man as he screamed, her contempt clear in the harsh sound of her wordless taunt. Face down in the dirt, a severely injured woman spat out a curse against the righteous faction. A silver-haired woman hovered above the forest floor, instructing her disciples that sometimes eradicating evil meant taking whatever measures were necessary. A blonde woman commanded the disciples to acknowledge her orders, her voice cutting through the night as a white-robed woman watched from the shadows. Two aggressive attackers slashed at a man with long hair as he crashed to the ground, and one yelled that he deserved to die. A dark-haired man glared through tears of blood, shouting that if there was another life, Bai Ningbing and Shun Qingzi would remember this moment. A blood-splattered backdrop sharpened the threat as a determined and relentless figure declared none of their targets would escape. Suddenly, the system detected intense obsession and an imminent death, announcing it was activating and attempting emergency repairs. A wooden watchtower stood over a calm mountain valley, red flags fluttering above the tents of the Hahuan sect's frontline stronghold. A calm and enigmatic dark-haired character lay upside down, meeting the viewer's gaze with a gentle, mysterious smile. He wondered aloud if he had already died and asked where he was. A dark-haired man slowly opened his eyes as someone nearby called out in surprise, recognizing his voice. A confident woman with long pink hair leaned forward and suggested he should try senior sister's Hahuan technique since he was finally awake. A confident young woman with long white hair introduced herself as Feng Qingyin and offered to check for internal injuries, warning that dual cultivation with her was dangerous. A dark-haired man sat beside a pink-haired woman on the bed, asking her for news about the war, and she replied that victory was certain. A confident woman in red announced that Bai Ningbing, who attacked yesterday, had already been defeated by the Hahuan sect master. The pink-haired woman told the dark-haired man that the Jade Maiden sect was completely destroyed and Bai Ningbing was badly injured and trapped by the sect master. A dark-haired man knelt in the rain, clutching his chest and wondering aloud why he had survived such severe wounds. A shadowed character let a sinister smirk curl at their lips, hidden eyes promising trouble. A long-haired figure ran toward the bright doorway, declaring they would finish off Bai Ningbing personally, since she was already gravely injured. A dark-haired man with a red scarf jolted, eyes snapping to the side as something unseen caught his attention. The pink-haired woman pinned the struggling dark-haired man in a tight hold, warning him not to run because she still wanted to discuss cultivation techniques. The pink-haired woman gently supported the dark-haired man and reassured him that he would not feel any pain. The pink-haired woman tightened her grip on the dark-haired man's neck and told him his death would be an especially pleasurable experience. Still, the dark-haired man realized he was too weak to survive and feared he would be drained to death by his captor. Suddenly, a system message announced to the blue-haired character that the personality correction system was now complete and fully awakened. Purple smoke curled around the dark-haired man as a system voice informed him that a reward was being granted and a new cultivation realm unlocked. The pink-haired woman held the dark-haired man tightly, while he questioned in disbelief if a personality correction system had really just activated. A glowing blue holographic screen announced the system would forcibly reform anyone with pure malice, granting special rewards during the process. A pale woman with long white hair leaned in close, taunting the dark-haired man and asking why he was no longer fighting back. A digital blue holographic display projects detailed information about Feng Qingyin, revealing her age, cultivation rank, and her ruthless determination to win love at any cost. A confident woman with glowing red eyes smirked, suggesting to her junior brother that he wanted to grow alongside his senior sister. The pink-haired woman grabbed the chin of the dark-haired man, while he demanded to know why she was doing this. A frustrated and enraged person with glowing red eyes yelled at the system, demanding to know why it appeared so late and ordering it to activate. Chains tightened around the pink-haired woman's wrists as she flinched, startled by the sudden appearance of throwing daggers hurtling straight toward her. A pink-haired woman screamed in disbelief as a dark-haired man hurled her into a glowing blue force field using his cultivation technique. Still, a tearful girl with flowing hair pleaded desperately for someone to stop whatever was happening. Still, a dark-haired man with a traditional outfit muttered that if the system had arrived sooner, Xiang might have been saved. Still, a long-haired man grimaced in frustration, his shadowed eyes revealing just how much the situation pushed him to the edge. A long-haired figure strode toward a swirling, electrified portal, letting out a steady breath as they prepared to cross the threshold. A long-haired man looked up at the chains and glowing red symbols, quietly wondering if he had stumbled into a prison cell. A dark-haired man in traditional robes inspected the glowing prison cells, quietly remarking that they were sealed and likely required certain conditions to be used. A blue-toned flash sliced across the scene, tense energy crackling through the air as if time itself had just accelerated. A pink-haired woman struggled against her restraints and demanded to know what magical artifact trapped her in this dim, torture-like room. A serious dark-haired man faced the glowing system interface, asking how rewards could be earned, and the system explained that reformation of others would bring greater gains. A dark-haired man glared forward, his red eyes burning with fierce determination. The system outlined a second option, stating that physically destroying the evil presence would yield a smaller reward. A desperate and tearful captive, bound by ropes, pleaded to the unseen host, asking what would happen to her and begging for mercy. Chains glinted in the dim room as a young man with dark hair considered what he might gain by forcefully refining the restrained pink-haired woman. Still, the pink-haired woman shouted at her unseen captor, demanding not to be ignored. A young man with dark hair pointed at the glowing interface, weighing the promise of power and the allure of a rare cultivation technique. A young man with dark hair unleashed a red aura and floating swords, muttering that he was too busy to bother training the pink-haired woman right now. A young man with dark hair commanded glowing swords to strike as he declared he would refine the pink-haired woman to break through his limits. The pink-haired woman begged junior brother Xiao to spare her, saying she would accept any fate, even becoming his servant if it meant staying alive. Ropes cut into the pink-haired woman's arms as glowing swords hurtled toward her, leaving her no escape. Suddenly, the pink-haired woman shouted a warning to the young man with dark hair about other cultivators approaching fast. A serious man with long dark hair triggered his power, saying he would send the host's mind back since someone had arrived unexpectedly. A pink-haired woman dangled in chains, barely dodging flaming blades, as she whispered in relief that she had finally survived. A pink-haired girl trembled as a cold voice announced that the Feng Qingyin reformation process had reached 50%. A determined blonde man burst through the door, shouting that dual cultivation could wait since the front lines desperately needed more people. The blonde man leaned over the railing and asked why only a young man with dark hair was present, demanding to know where Feng Qingyin had gone. A young man with dark hair hesitated, softly starting to say that someone, she, was involved. The young man with dark hair remarked that she had apparently chosen a spot for secluded cultivation. A man with pink hair seized the young man with dark hair's wrist and told him they just needed numbers before flying off with him. A purple-haired young man hovered in midair, magical swords swirling around him as his determined gaze sharpened with power. A young man with dark hair asked the blonde-haired woman what she needed, and she ordered him to capture the Jade Maiden sect master, by Ningbing. Flames consumed the village as a white-haired figure carried a wounded woman, reporting grimly that the sect master had killed most invading Jade Maiden sect disciples. Word spread quickly as a determined male warrior told others that Bai Ningbing was trapped and the sect master had summoned disciples to launch a siege. Aggressive thoughts surged as someone determined to seek revenge vowed silently that Bai Ningbing would soon face judgment. Two mystical fighters levitate above the canyon, glowing swords drawn, as a tense crowd of onlookers gathers below to witness the looming clash. A serious older man ordered everyone to form a line and wait for the sect master's instructions, while two disciples responded that they understood. A serious dark-haired man scanned the group with suspicion, muttering that these so-called arrangements looked more like lining up to die. A hopeful green-haired man and a smug brown-haired man boasted about capturing Bai Ningbing, while a dark-haired man silently dismissed their ambitions, energy glowing near his eye. A long-haired young man glowed with golden light at the center of the cave as news spread that he had reached the 5th level of body forging. An older man beamed as he told a dark-haired man that their brother had broken through just before the battle, while the other grinned with anticipation. A young man with dark hair stood in a swirl of golden energy, puzzled as he questioned why the Reformation progress had reached 50% without his action. A leader figure commanding attention called for silence, prompting the group of people to quiet down and focus on the rocky passage ahead. A respectful and formal man announced to those gathered that sect master Xiao had arrived. An imposing elder man with long white hair and mustache radiated a powerful purple aura, his presence commanding instant respect. All disciples bowed low before sect master Xiao Xiaozi, greeting him and quietly admitting his terrifying aura was even greater than they had imagined. Xiao Yaozi, the imposing man with white hair and a beard, told everyone they could set aside the formalities. The authoritative and composed leader listened as the respectful and obedient followers thanked him. Then he acknowledged their gratitude with a solemn nod. A white-haired woman handed a red elixir to a man with a bun, explaining it would boost his strength for the operation as others watched. A solemn dark-haired man received a small red orb from an unseen hand, while an amused and carefree man laughed behind him. A blue-haired man told the dark-haired man to swallow the pill quickly and warned that the Hahuan sect's medicine was probably dangerous. A long-haired figure strode toward a glowing opponent radiating purple energy, as intense eyes glimmered with anticipation in the shadows behind them. A determined dark-haired man hesitated, deciding he would only pretend to swallow the red pill for now. A white-haired armored figure pointed urgently at the cave entrance, warning the others that Bai Ningbing was severely injured inside. An older man with intense eyes warned the others that if they attacked together now, it would be their best chance. Then, a commanding white-haired man urged the eager fighters forward, promising they would be able to defeat her together. A furious man with glowing red eyes charged into the tunnel, shouting to his group that Bai Ningbing would be his no matter what. A dark-haired man with red eyes leaned forward, warning everyone that the pill clearly had something wrong with it. 3 armed pursuers surged forward, shouting that they had found Bai Ningbing and urging each other to capture the wounded woman quickly. A wounded silver-haired woman knelt in the dirt, clutching her bleeding side with resolve as pain flickered across her face. Fiery chains blazing, Bai Ningbing charged forward and promised she would capture her target and force reform no matter what. Still, the determined silver-haired woman spat scorn at the Hahuan sect, condemning them for using lackeys to provoke her. 2 attackers with glowing red eyes lunged at a female warrior with flowing green hair as she raised her glowing sword to meet them. A determined silver-haired woman hurled green energy at the older man while declaring he was arrogant, leaving him stunned and reeling from the attack. A female warrior in blue unleashed a surge of green energy, sending multiple armed opponents tumbling back under its force. A young man with dark hair eyed the wounded woman warily and muttered that getting involved now would be suicide, given his weak cultivation. A white-haired woman glanced over her shoulder and quietly wondered what those 2 glowing, twisted corpses were doing behind her. Then, the white-haired woman stared in disbelief and whispered that she couldn't understand how this was possible. Flames erupted as a silver-haired woman with torn clothing was hurled through the blast, her body limp and powerless against the explosion. Still, a bare-kneed figure slammed into the ground with force, determination driving them through the impact. Still, the white-haired woman clutched her head in shock, crying out that she couldn't comprehend how the corpses could suddenly explode. Still, the white-haired woman coughed as she muttered that something was wrong with the mist swirling around her. Two men stood before the cave entrance as the gray-haired man explained the red mist was filled with an aphrodisiac poison, urging patience. The white-haired woman, injured and weary, gasped for breath and let out a strained laugh as she clutched her chest. Then, the white-haired woman whispered that her body suddenly felt unbearably hot. A young man with dark hair spat blood onto the ground, his body tense and his breath ragged in the silence. Still, a young man with dark hair surveyed the exploded corpses, thinking the elixir's effects were brutal and the Hahuan sect's leaders monstrous. A silver-haired woman crouched near the cave entrance, gripped her sword tightly, and demanded to know who was there. A silver-haired woman hurled a surge of green energy at the young man with dark hair, taunting him about whether he was still trying to hide. A white-haired woman in torn clothing seized a young man with dark hair by the throat, demanding to know how he survived and calling him an ant. A white-haired woman accused the Hahuan sect of using cruel methods, while a young man with dark hair pleaded with the system to contain her. The white-haired woman gripped the young man with dark hair by the arm, announcing that his fate was to be killed by her again. A young man with dark hair smirked and taunted the unseen Grand Sect Master, saying he needed to provoke her anger even further. Chains glinted in the candlelight as a tied-up woman endured captivity, refusing to surrender despite the threats echoing through the chamber. A green-haired woman roared for silence and blasted a surge of green energy, sending the long-haired man flying backward. The silver-haired woman covered one eye and raged that Shin Qingxi's betrayal had left her in this miserable state. A determined woman with a glowing sword advanced and declared she would destroy the Hahuan sect and every traitor, starting with the kneeling man before her. A young man with dark hair shouted furiously at the green glowing woman, demanding she die, while an unseen voice reported her hostility was still not high enough. A young man with dark hair cried out in disbelief as a surge of green energy blasted into him. A white-haired warrior swung her sword, green energy crackling as she slashed at her long-haired opponent, while a hand below reached for a glowing blade. The fierce woman with long white hair lunged straight at the large glowing sword. A young man with dark hair grimaced as he told himself that 90% was still a little short. A sword slammed into the ground, sending shards of debris flying through the tense air. A young man with dark hair whipped around in shock, unable to hide his confusion as the sword crashed down behind him. A silver-haired woman trembled, her voice breaking as she wondered aloud why her body suddenly felt so weak. The white-haired woman whispered that she couldn't stand the heat any longer. The white-haired woman gasped in pain, struggling to endure the agony racking her body. Outside a shadowy cave, a white-haired man told a dark-haired man that Bai Ningbing was losing control against their sect's poison. A white-haired old man announced they would let her suffer the full effects of the poison before he helped, and the man behind him praised his brilliance. Screams of terror rang out, echoing through the empty page. Moments later, a silver-haired woman plunged helplessly through the cavern's darkness, surrounded by jagged stalactites looming from every direction. Still, the silver-haired woman collapsed onto the rocky ground, struggling to catch her breath. Still, a muscled man with long hair sat in meditation, red flames swirling around him as an unconscious woman in torn white clothes lay nearby. A determined man with long dark hair clenched his fist, realizing his cultivation had just reached the 9th level of body tempering, as a frightened woman whimpered behind him. Confident, the silver-haired woman explained her primal, holy body granted endless uses as green energy shimmered around her. A young man with dark hair stood with arms crossed, silently watching a white-haired woman sitting on the ground. A white-haired woman, furious and injured, accused the calm sect master of forcing her, but he retorted that she was actually the one at fault. A young man with dark hair pinned the white-haired woman against the rock wall, and she admitted she could only endure the overwhelming force. A white-haired woman's alarm spiked as she gasped, her eyes darting off panel. A tense hand reached for the sword lying on the ground, and the person murmured uncertainly, trying to form words. The white-haired woman leveled her glowing sword and warned that even a recent moment of intimacy would not stop her from killing him. The silver-haired woman lunged at the young man with dark hair, demanding his life as a digital alert urged immediate correction for detected malice. A fierce young woman with silver hair raised her sword, every muscle tensed as she prepared to strike. The silver-haired woman attacked the young man with dark hair, while a mechanical voice reported that the system could not detain Bai Ningbing. A fierce young man with dark hair barked that someone needed to throw Feng Qingyin out. The determined silver-haired woman slashed her sword, sending the pink-haired woman flying as she gasped out a startled question. The silver-haired woman fought against the dark chains as a massive spiked weapon swung straight toward her. The long-haired man thrust out his hand and ordered the guards to take her in. Blue energy surged from the chained silver-haired woman's hands as she shouted in shock. The long-haired figure raised both arms and sent a surge of energy into the glowing blue portal. Still, the young man with dark hair clenched his teeth, determination burning in his eyes. Suddenly, a shadowy figure cried out in pain beside a wall lined with brutal iron chains and torture devices. Still, the silver-haired woman thrashed against the wooden restraints, demanding to know where she was and why her cultivation powers wouldn't work. The young man with dark hair seized the white-haired woman by the hair and told her that he controlled everything here, including her life. Then, the defiant captive restrained on the wooden cross demanded to know her attacker's identity and how she possessed such power, but the aggressive interrogator slapped her hard. The young man with dark hair grabbed the silver-haired woman's chin and told her she had no right to question him in her current state. The man with the top knot asked the system what rewards he would get for fully correcting Bai Ningbing, and the system listed powerful benefits. A dark-clad figure remarked to the white-haired woman that Sect Master Bai's rewards were impressively generous. Someone gripped the whip and said they needed to claim the rewards. A dark-haired woman stated with resolve that she would need to dedicate even more effort to training the other person. The silver-haired woman pleaded desperately for someone not to continue. An urgent system warning announced the presence of other cultivators nearby. The dark-haired man clenched his whip and muttered in frustration that trouble always seemed to strike at the worst possible moment. A focused, powerful hand crackled with purple energy as it commanded the crystalline surface to break. A sudden explosion shattered the ground, sending a surge of jagged blue crystals erupting upward through clouds of dust and flying debris. For shadowy figures with glowing red eyes stood menacingly amid swirling mist and floating rocks, their presence heavy and threatening in the shattered silence. A man with long white hair smirked and told Fairy Ningbing he hoped she wasn't upset he'd kept her waiting. A worried man with long hair peeked from behind the cave wall, muttering that the sect master and others had entered and he was doomed. Red mist thickens around bloodied bodies as a strategic and menacing blocker faces four desperate companions at the only cave exit, declaring there is no escape. A determined man with long dark hair clenched his glowing red fist and told himself he had no choice but to risk everything. A wounded man coughs up blood, clutching his chest as he mutters that he may have pushed his strength too far. A white-robed figure radiates intense purple energy and commands the group around him to disperse. For figures stand in heavy silence among fallen bodies, the dark-haired man quietly reflecting as the cave's tension presses in around them. A nervous dark-haired man reported that only one man and one woman survived, while a commanding white-haired elder impatiently demanded he finish his explanation. A pink-haired woman knelt in a glowing, surreal space, insisting she wasn't Bai Ningbing and desperately questioning where she was. A pink-haired girl screamed as a white-haired man hurled her backward with a surge of blazing red energy. A pink-haired woman in red crashed to the ground as someone pinned her down, vowing there was no way Bai Ningbing could escape his net. An imposing man with glowing red eyes towered over the fearful woman in red, demanding to know where Bai Ningbing was hiding as she insisted she knew nothing. A calm man with a top knot advised the stern gray-haired leader to stay composed, while a woman with horns speculated that Bai Ningbing might already be dead. A radiant sect master unleashed a forceful purple aura over the fallen pink-haired woman as a man with black hair and beard questioned his sanity. An accusatory older man seized by Ningbing by the collar, demanding to know how much longer she planned to keep up her disguise and deception. A young woman with long pink hair cried out as black spikes slammed into her, forcing her to shield herself with a burst of glowing light. A worried man with a bun demanded an explanation, and the Lord Sectmaster replied that he should have figured it out by now. The narrator declared that the woman standing before them was actually by Ningbing in disguise. A young woman with long pink hair knelt on the ground, clutching a glowing object and asking in confusion what was happening. A skeptical and sharp old man challenged the wounded dark-haired man, saying he saw through the disguise and knew his true identity. A suspicious elder with a beard pressed the pink-haired woman, insisting her alluring aura proved she had been affected by the sect's aphrodisiac powder. A white-haired man pointed confidently at the dark-haired figure and said there was still a living witness, startling the pink-haired woman. A determined pink-haired woman clenched her teeth and called out Yi Zheng's name, her voice echoing with anger as purple energy swirled behind her. Furious, the pink-haired woman hurled a purple snake-shaped energy blast at the robed figure, blaming them for everything that had happened. Someone off-screen demanded to know if anyone really thought they would be given a chance to threaten him and plot together. Still, the pink-haired woman screamed in agony as blood spilled from her mouth and shadows flickered wildly in the purple candlelight. An injured young person with purple hair writhed in pain as an older man in white robes ordered the dark-haired man to wake the surviving brat. An aggressive and controlling figure clamped a hand over the mouth of a young man with dark hair, forcing him into silence. Moments later, the dark-haired character jerked back, coughing violently as pain racked their body. Inside the cave, a concerned elder called Elder Niao supported a weary survivor as he pressed her to explain what had happened moments before. The injured woman recounted seeing her senior and junior brothers explode in front of her as a pink-haired woman collapsed, riddled with arrows. The dark-haired man crouched low, clutching the ring tightly as he muttered that something was about to happen. A mocking elder with gray hair explained that the captive changed her appearance, boasting this outcome was exactly as he predicted, while the bound person struggled helplessly. A commanding white-haired man ordered his subordinates to take the struggling pink-haired girl away, promising he would refine her into the strongest cauldron after the war. A furious pink-haired woman lunged at the calm dark-haired man, vowing she would never forgive Yi Zheng, even in death. A calm and authoritative leader kneels in the dim room, instructing his followers to regroup quickly since the Jade Maiden sect is no longer a threat. An elderly man with long silver hair questioned if everyone else had swallowed the elixir and caused their own destruction. A suspicious elderly man narrowed his eyes and demanded to know how a brat like the defensive and surprised younger man could have survived. Still sweating nervously, the dark-haired character realized suspicion lingered on them and thought they needed to quickly devise a countermeasure before it was too late. A calm and knowledgeable elder explained that after swallowing the elixir, he felt a painful surge and was struck by Ningbing, which unexpectedly boosted his strength. Two older men with long hair discussed how the boy's rapid advancement might mean he has a rare drug-resistant body, making him suited for pill testing. Two sinister and confident men, eyes glowing red, laughed menacingly at the uneasy and subordinate black-haired figure as he hesitantly addressed the sect master. Suddenly, a hand clamped down on the shoulder of a dark-haired man, making him tense up in surprise. A warm and confident mentor smiled, placing his hand on the surprised dark-haired man's shoulder, and stated he would now take him as his personal disciple. Yi Zheng bowed deeply, swearing to fight for the Hahuan sect, while Elder Wu told him to stand, and Lord Sectmaster ordered everyone back to the front lines. The dark-haired man blocked the grabbing hand, telling himself that whatever plot these elders had planned, survival was all that mattered now. Two warriors glided through the air on orange energy swords, launching a direct attack at a mysterious and powerful purple-haired figure hovering amid swirling purple flames. A massive alchemy vessel sent thick smoke curling through the fortified hall, marking the entrance to the frontline stronghold alchemy hall. A white-haired figure soared across the courtyard, gripping a glowing sword as they hurtled straight toward a towering ceremonial urn. A sly and secretive master told his wary disciple to handle an urgent task, while the young man silently suspected the old man's motives. A confident yet secretly cowardly disciple pledged fierce loyalty to his serious master, but secretly thought he'd run at the first sign of danger. The older man urged the younger man to swallow all the glowing elixirs, leaving the younger man wide-eyed and clearly reluctant. A flickering green light hovered over a table as an experienced and cautious mentor warned a disciple with a drug-resistant physique not to waste powerful elixirs. Someone reflected that he was only chosen as a disciple to serve as a test subject for medicine. A serious figure with long dark hair tried to defend himself, asking if the other person believed he had lied earlier. An authoritative and intimidating elder slammed his flaming hand onto the table, warning that deceiving someone older would have serious consequences. A young man with dark hair decided to take a risk, announcing that he would choose the small pink pill. The calm and authoritative older man instructed the young man with dark hair to eat each item while he recorded every reaction. A young man with dark hair wondered how he could trick the older man, realizing he was being watched the entire time. A serious-looking older man with long gray hair looked up in alarm and demanded to know what was happening. A stern older man with long gray hair spun around clutching a scroll as someone reported that the righteous factions were attacking again and called him Elder Wu. The young man with dark hair urged the older man to handle the righteous cultivators while he tested the medicine first. Still, a resolute man with tied-back hair ordered all disciples at the frontline stronghold to face the enemy together with him. A long-haired man clutched his pendant and told himself this chaos was the perfect chance to slip away while both sides were distracted. A long-haired figure surveyed rows of elixir jars, telling himself he needed to make a fortune here before he left the elixir hall. A young man with dark hair spoke with determination, ordering whoever was listening to release by Ningbing immediately. A white-haired woman gasped as swirling digital light caught her off guard. A white-haired woman with a dark collar let out a shaky breath as she said she had finally escaped that miserable place. A dark-haired man pinned the white-haired woman with a glowing chain, warning her she would never escape him in this lifetime as she gasped in pain. A man in black and red robes ordered the white-haired woman to sort the elixirs, while she demanded to know what he intended. The silver-haired woman admitted she didn't know how to refine elixirs, explaining her disciples had always handled those tasks. The young man with dark hair demanded the unseen person help him search for something, urging them to hurry since they must have used it before. Kneeling and chained, the silver-haired woman glared upward, questioning if she would stay under the control of a lesser cultivator forever. The silver-haired character tensed, quietly wondering what had just caught their attention. A nervous figure clutched a glowing elixir, uncertain whether to let go or trust it would protect them. The silver-haired woman looked ahead with a hopeful smile, thinking this might be her chance to restore her cultivation. The white-haired woman explained the bottle might contain pills to improve cultivation, so the dark-haired woman said she wanted to examine it and reached up. The silver-haired woman yanked the chain hard, making the dark-haired man gasp in surprise. Still, the silver-haired woman clawed fiercely at her chest while the broken chain dangled from her neck. Still, the woman with silver hair strained helplessly as the metal collar clamped tightly around her neck. A shocked man with long dark hair and a bun demanded to know if someone had really consumed the elixir. A silver-haired woman spoke confidently, saying she could tell from the listener's face that her guess was correct. The glowing woman cried out that the medicine was so potent her heart raced, and she was about to lose control. A young woman with pink hair struggled against the heavy metal collar, gasping out in confusion at the sudden force around her neck. The chained woman with long white hair said her cultivation still hadn't returned and hinted anxiously there was something even more troubling. The pink-eyed woman with pale hair blushed and thought the elixir's effect felt oddly familiar. A young man with dark hair touched his chin, thinking the old man must have wanted him to test the Hawan pill, but feeling relieved he never took it. An unseen hand pulled up the sleeve of a dark-sleeved arm, urging someone to hurry. A white-haired woman with glowing eyes urgently grabbed the dark-gloved arm and demanded to be given something right away. A long-haired figure smirked and mocked the other, saying they had tried to escape before but now dared to beg. The glowing pink-eyed woman, face flushed, leaned into the man's grip and admitted in a trembling voice that she knew she was wrong. The confident dark-haired man raised his chain and demanded to see the pink-haired character's attitude after admitting their mistake. Still on her knees, the chained woman begged for real punishment and insisted she couldn't take any more. The dark-haired man looked down at the chained woman and said she was nothing more than a pitiful dog begging for his mercy. The dark-haired man warned the chained white-haired woman that this was her last chance, and she quickly insisted she wouldn't disappoint him again. Suddenly, an unseen force rattled the ceramic vases and scrolls lined up on the wooden shelf. The long-haired man strained against his chains and said the poison from the supreme-grade Hahuan pill was almost impossible to cure. The silver-haired woman clenched her torn clothing and muttered in frustration, questioning why she had ended up with him again. A digital interface announced that after completing the first correction act, the system would now unlock the second correction room. A serious-looking dark-haired man noticed the glowing blue screen and wondered aloud what it was. A young man with dark hair smirked and responded with amusement. A massive door creaked open, red lights spilling out as someone remarked with surprise that an unexpected reward awaited inside.